There are a lot of problems that our country faces today, but one of the most common, yet least known, is human trafficking.
Human trafficking is the trade in humans, most commonly for the purpose of sexual slavery, forced labor, and the extraction of organs and tissues.
Human trafficking is a crime against the victim because of the violation of the victim's rights through coercion and exploitation.
These victims are kidnapped, held against their will, drugged, and forced to provide services to the traffickers and others involved.
Individuals on the front lines in the fight against domestic sexual trafficking of children report that instances are on the rise. They tell us that former drug dealers have moved on to sex trafficking. They also tell us that technological advances have made this type of trafficking easier as smartphones and other devices provide distance and increased levels of anonymity. And certain websites that post classified ads soliciting sexual partners also help facilitate trafficking. The risk of sex trafficking is compounded every year for up to 30,000 young people.
There are approximately 20 to 30 million slaves worldwide today.
95% of victims experience physical and/or sexual violence during trafficking.
Remember this, 20 to 30 million people are trafficked each year. That's more than the entire population of Massachusetts.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Bro. I'm an Assistant Chief Probation Officer at the Middlesex County Juvenile Court in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's becoming more and more prevalent in our community. Just 5 years ago, it wasn't a word that you heard or anything that we were concerned about, other than the occasional runaway. In the last probably 3.5 years, it's becoming something that's very concerning, and it happens more than you'd like to talk about.
The majority of victims are between the ages of 18 and 24.
Too many of these emancipated youth turn 18, pack their few belongings in a trash bag, and are driven to the homeless shelter, leaving them vulnerable and exposed to trafficker and other predators.
An estimated 1.2 million children are trafficked each year.
In July of this year, the FBI's Innocence Lost initiative, which combats domestic sex trafficking of minors, launched Operation Cross Country, a 3-day effort to recover child victims of sex trafficking. Operation Cross Country recovered 105 children and arrested 152 traffickers. The efforts of the Innocence Lost initiative and the results of Operation Cross Country are laudable. However, they also revealed a disturbing element of our nation's child welfare and foster care systems. According to some reports, up to 60% of sexually exploited children are recruited out of the child welfare and foster care systems.
The Middlesex District Attorney's Office has put forth an effort to train all the probation staff, the social workers, the police department in identifying. They're putting together a criteria to identify some markers, so if we run into cases that we think may be falling into this category, that we have a protocol in place. DCF, the Department of Children and Family, their hotline workers are being trained, so if somebody calls in to the Department of Children and Family with those concerns, that they have a protocol to follow, and the law enforcement is all brought in together to try to deal with it.
Human trafficking victims are promised false hope from their recruiters. Once they realize that they aren't going to receive what they've been promised, it's too late.
Because of the trauma and past abuse suffered by children and youth in these systems, they are particularly vulnerable to traffickers. FBI officials involved in Operation Cross Country report that, quote, law enforcement refers to these young victims as children with a void. Once the pimp identifies that void and makes every attempt to fill it, a dependency between the child and the perpetrator develops, unquote.
It's profound. Unfortunately, trafficking victims don't know that they're being trafficked until it's too late. Generally they prey upon teenage girls or younger girls, even preteen girls that are looking for a sense of belonging, maybe confused where they're at, difficulty in school. The perpetrators of human trafficking befriend them and promise them the world, and unfortunately they fall victim very quickly.